asked me to do a little video on how to read stats, like what to look for, what to, like there's a lot of kind of traps in there of, oh, I have this, so I'm good, versus like what they actually mean. So we're going to try to do that in a little video format, and hopefully it won't be too long. Um, the first page you get is your match pad. This is your most like surface level of things. It just gives you a general idea of the scoreboard, what was going on, without looking at some of the in-depth stuff. Um, Target call, like you can see if one team's calling a lot more targets, attacks thrown. That's sometimes indicative of like if you have a lot of people on spikes, like getting more attacks. One thing I think Xhiggy used to have a stat of average on target. Yeah, there you are. So it's under offense. But we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. And then damage taken. Usually the team that loses takes more damage, which, surprise, surprise, evasion matters. Um, so this, like I said, this is going to be your targets and deaths is your first thing you want to look at. Um, are you dying a lot? Are you dying more than other people? Sometimes even like I said, if you're not targeted much, you're gonna play a little bit more aggressive, so you're gonna get caught sleeping one of those times. You want to try to avoid it, but it does happen. So yeah, you want to look at your survivability as just kind of, it is what it is. The other team can't win if you don't give up deaths, but like, if you're not on enough targets playing too defensive, you're not gonna have, you're not gonna get kills either. So it's like there's a balancing act in there somewhere, and the idea is to kind of read it over the course of the match. So like if you're not getting pressured at all or not getting targeted, you want to try to be a little more aggressive, a little bit more, timely. Try to get on those targets. OTP, this is the big trap stat. It's very good for an initial look at something and say, oh, okay, like this person's consistently on targets. You know, at the end of the day, depending on play styles and everything like that, I say like, and this is opinion, is between like 70 and 90% is like where you want to shoot for. If you're playing a more defensive match, like if you're one of those matches where like you're the only 1606 player, or one of the few, and you're not getting consistent nature buffs, like it's on you to be more defensive than it is offensive because your blasters are going to be your more backbone characters. So, those times where you think your target and you jaw it off and you're wrong, it sucks. But at the end of the day, there's going to be times where it's right. So it's like, yeah, I'd even say as low as like, low 70s, high 60s, like that's okay-ish. Like it's not bad. Like you're not bad for being on that low. If you're not giving up kills, if you're giving up a lot of kills and you're that low, then it's no bueno. Um, so that's kind of like the OTP thing. It's like, as a very very new player, you can look at this as a very surface stat and be like, hey, am I kind of hitting that threshold where I'm kind of getting on enough targets that I'm relevant to the offense, at least like putting damage on the target so that offensive pressure is generated. Um, but like there's a lot deeper that this stat goes that show that it'll be like, oh, like there's like you could be high OTP but low impact when it comes to certain things. Larry's not. I keep hovering over Larry with his 93%, but like Larry's high impact, high OTP. That's why he's a good first pick. Um, yeah, so on heal percentage is kind of the same way. The way it's calculated is um, there's a time for whenever the first attack. I think it's the first attack shows up on your buff bar, and then it's also the first instance of damage hits. And from there, you're given a window of about 4-ish seconds. I want to say, like Xiggy would have like a better recollection of all this, and some of this stuff is in the info to tell you the different timing thresholds and stuff like that. Like I know, like he has things especially for like EF. Um, and I think there is like some healing things. So if you're really interested in it, you can like go through some of that stuff. Let's go back to the old match here. Did we lose it? There we are. Is that right? Yeah, that's the right one. This was the good quality matches night that we had, where I think we had a lot of very. Uh, you have a where was I saying? You had a lot of you had a lot of consistent people on target on time. So like the spikes were consistently more deadly. We didn't have quite the natures to run like a more consistent team, but it was still a decent night of matches. So let's see here. So yeah, we had that. We had on heal. Like I said, there's different thresholds. I think it's like out to 4 seconds. You're still credited on heal percentage. So it's like you can have a very late heal, but past that, it counts you as a top off heal, which isn't bad. Like it's like if someone evades well and they do break out of the damage, like you catching them with the top off isn't the end of the world. The sheer amount of heals, uh, more is better, but like the thing with on heal is like if you're over 50%, that's usually indicative of the offense screwing up more than the emp out healing somebody. Now, like I said, obviously, like if you are getting those high percentages and everything like that, you are in a more consistent spot to heal. But then the thing you want to look at is how many deaths are you giving up in the process. With these like kickballs where you have some people who don't evade, people who are very slow on it, you're going to see higher on heal percentages. Um, but like I said, also, if you're not getting pressured like that, like you're probably going to have a higher on heal. But like Elects are going to be a little bit more friendly than Emps. Like Elects are going to have a lot more actions per match than Emps because it's just like Elect actions are 1 second apiece, whereas Emps are 2.27. So they're the two main heals, I should say. So like Elect, you're going to get those numbers up there. Um, but yeah, on heal just kind of gives you an idea of, like I said, if the number's too high, that means like the offense is usually screwing up pretty hard. If the number's too low, it might be that they're getting heal starved or the Emps are getting pressured. With this, like if you're at 40 to 60%, like you're fine. Like as an Emp, you're not doing anything wrong there, I don't think. You're going to have some matches that are lower. Like if you're getting like 10, 11 targets put on you, it's going to have to be on the offense to let themselves survive a little bit better. Um, and then, similarly, it's like if you have an offense that's really good, like if the target caller on the other team isn't cycling targets well, like people are getting like full use out of their phases and hibernates, if they're jawing fast, your on heal is going to be lower, and that's okay. So it's like that's why I said it's like you could look at these stats from a kind of a cursory perspective, but there is some depth to it where it's like, oh, this person had more on heal than the other. It's like, well, if one emp was being the more alpha emp where they're trying to get the on heal and the other one is trying to chase people down, which is ideally what you'll have something like that going, where you have your faster emp try to be more timely, and then your other emp does a lot of the more background stuff, like they're keeping clear mind up more consistently, they're topping people off so the other emp could be in a better position to start off with. They might be keeping spirit ward up on the priority targets, whereas like the other emp only gets to do that whenever he has the time between the spikes. Now, everyone has time between the spikes, but like it's the secondary emp, we'll call them, has a lot more of the maintenance stuff going on versus like the heal bombing. You can both heal bomb, but like what you look at that a lot of times is it ends up getting wasted, like because you're overhealing somebody. And that's one of the reasons too why the Emp Elect can work well together, but it can also be kind of messed up where it's like if you have two people who are very fast on Emp and Elect, the Elect throws the absorb shield and the Emp throws the heal, and the heal heals for nothing, and the absorb shield like basically counters the heal. So it's like, yeah, there's some weird stuff that goes on there. This right here shows you the score of the match over time, so you can kind of see where teams pull away, or like if there's comebacks or anything like that. Spikes called versus kills. 50 is like a decent place to be for where we are for like a new player kickball. There's probably a decent amount of dead time between calls with that, but it's like it's something that can always be improved on. Um, Attacks thrown more isn't necessarily better. Especially like with if you're roguing a lot or a lot of off targets, which we'll get to here. Um, the player tab. This is an interesting one because you can actually look at like cumulative stats for players. It has like all of the it's basically Xhiggy right now. We have 340 match nights that have happened. And then we have individual player stats that you can get into to show. Yes, I've played the most. Ken is second, which is surprising because I thought Seagate was a little higher, but yeah, you can see what a person plays. Like Xhiggy did some really cool stuff about putting some custom avatars in there. How many matches you've played. what the character is, and then you can like it'll break down like various stats for the person. Um, I think like different, and it'll show you where you played this character at. So you're like, oh, where did I play Apocalypticism at? Like my Fire Plant Blaster. I can go back and scroll through all of these, and look at matches if I want to see like how I did or something like that. Um, let's see here, records. That's nothing to worry about. So let's go back. All right. So that's the stuff up here. I don't think records you have to worry about. Upload, it's really easy to upload stats. Infos, where it'll give you, Ziggy gives you a little breakdown of what the different things mean. So we're on the summary page. The spike log is really interesting because it'll show you, it breaks down like basically every action that's occurring. It doesn't pick up everything because it's all through the perspective of the person recording the stats, and there is render range. So once things are a little bit out of render range, it won't pick up certain actions. So it's like that's why if someone's very high, or like like you like let's say you skybox on a jaunt and people chase you, but that person who was recording was off that spike, it just won't show up. So it's it's not a perfect system. It doesn't like track API for the entire match. It just tracks it through the perspective of the player that's recording the stats. So like I said, if you can have one player on each team record the stats, it can help clear up some inconsistencies. But it's not necessary. Like I said, this is just kind of to give you an idea of what's going on. Like I said, it gives you action by action that's happening. That you can sort it by the time, the target, the duration, the number of attackers on target. So like here you can see blue team comes out, gets 6 people on the first spike, but they do significantly less damage than the 3 attackers who are on this spike. And probably what that is I don't know, maybe, no, I don't even know. That's not a lot of damage. But Mad Villain gets a really nice phase off here before he just takes 3 blazes. So you know what it must be? Almost have to be is one team has absorbed, one team doesn't here, because they take a similar amount of attacks. I mean, Sar takes 2 more, he gets heals, but like I said, the thing you could look at here is like this is a 7-second duration spike, so like most of this stuff just doesn't matter. Like so, like let's see here, Rocky Potato at 273 firing your first attack, you might as well be off target. Zeal, you're off target. All Natural, you're off target here. Actually, no, she got her blaze off, so she's on target. Zeracles, you're off target, but you were also first target, so you might have just fired something late there. But like this is one of those ones where like OTP is deceptive because like realistically 1, 2, 3 of these 6 people are off target. They're not on any kind of timely manner to get a kill. Whereas with this spike, you have country music, you have Cubano who fires Dominate Blazing Bolt for some reason. The Dominate lead, the Renegades classic, when everyone has clear mind. Bleh. But yeah, like I said, the 3.4, 5.3 seconds. This is damage that doesn't matter. Like this is you making yourself late on the next spike for OTP, and this is why people like Scylla and stuff like that are like OTP doesn't matter. It's like when you look at the spike logs, OTP doesn't matter because this is the stuff that actually matters. And you can't the way Xhiggy put it together is it gives you like a little idea of what's going on. But that's something you can like look in here, like when you were saying like, oh, like let me look at a player, and there is a more of a breakdown than this on the offense tab, which we'll go to. But I was just kind of going with this. This will show you cast time on the top row and then hit time on the second row, and you'll see some inconsistencies here where the damage in the greens don't hit at the times you would expect them to. There is a delay on them, so like that's a good way to kind of figure out when things are hitting into the spike frame. Also, like sometimes you'll see like that's where like distance matters and stuff like that. Like so, All Natural fires a blaze from 80-foot range, which is the ideal range because it hits about 1.3 seconds. You can see mine like is a little bit further away, and it hits at 171, which is about the upper range of what you want blaze to hit. But Here 400 degrees is even further out, and because he's a little bit later, his hits at 2.5, which is too late for a spike. Like, you generally want everything to be around 2.2 seconds or lower. So like beyond that, that's when you expect to get the first heal. So like all this kind of other stuff, this is more extra damage on target. So this wasn't a great spike on our end, but it did end quick. So like we didn't have as many people chasing late. Um, these kind of spikes, they're really bad because that means that you have people that are coming in 3 to 5 seconds late just to throw damage. Like 2.6 second spikes, like they're good because they end quick. People got their damage. The person jaunted out. I'm topped off there. Rec throws a late blaze. Like that gets him. Like see, that's the thing. It's like Rec got an on target for this, but the spike is already over. So it's like it doesn't really count for anything. But 6.9s, they're bad. And you can sort by duration here. You can see it's like usually the 2.1 to 2.5 seconds are going to be the ones that get you more kills. Now, sometimes you'll get like the 3.1 seconds where it's like, see, he takes a heal, but doesn't do anything, so he still dies. Let's see another one here. Zeal. This one is just kind of like he may be out of position, the M's missed him or something like that. He didn't phase, jaunt, anything like that. Nothing was done, so yeah, you die a little bit slower. Same thing here. This just looks like a decent amount of damage, and he dies with a heal on him. But like I said, you'll see like some kills in the 3.5 range, and then as you get lower, you see all these longer spikes. Notice how none of them are kills. Let's see here. It's here. This is probably an out of green spike. Like, see, he takes a timely AP, a heal, another heal, and still it jaunts at the 5 second mark after taking 1, 2, 3 heals. That's not good. Sorry, Rocky Potato, whoever you are. But like I said, usually spikes like this aren't going to result in kills unless you're really screwing up. And you can see, like, as you go down, there's more X's the shorter the spikes get. And that's why we kind of preach on target, on time, timely. Don't throw those late attacks to just be on target. Like, use your positioning to be better on the next spike because that's where you're going to get a kill. So if you're wondering why, like, this is indicative of most matches where you have, like, decent offense on both sides. Like, yeah, when you have like the ones where like you have a bunch of half your offense is like 40% and below, or you have like those 1 or 2 players that are like 20% on target, or they're just never on target. You kind of fall below that threshold, and then like some funky stuff starts to happen. But when you have decent stuff going on, this is what you're going to expect to see. Most of your kills are happening on the low end, and then all these things down here where there's no X's are just wasted spikes where people are wasting animations. They're putting themselves in worse places. They're probably taking more heals. They're being late on the next spike, and it just snowballs from there. And I said, like, this was one of the better matches, and you can still see it's probably about 2/3 of our spikes are pretty bad. Not 2/3. We'll say about 40%. Like if that's the whole 100% bar, like we'll cut it off at around, we'll say 4.5 seconds. And the 4.5 seconds isn't a good spike. It's just like someone being late, or someone like like sometimes when you're trying to animate your second attack, you're not in a good range, you're not in a good position, and you don't get it off. So it's like it comes off late. But yeah, like I said, it's not good. Like I said, this one right here, let's just look at a random one. Like this is a decent spike right here. It's like you have Cubano being early. He also thought firing the right chain because you don't go corrosive blaze, especially on someone who's likely either high or going to evade, which I didn't hear. But you have 1, 2, 3, 4 attacks very timely, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so like this is a good spike. This is probably just one of the ones where I have absorb and just kind of like tank my way through it. And I know I was calling for this one, so like at certain times when you're calling, like you'll tank, you will tank a little bit more. Not ideally, but you will. But like I said, this is a good spike because you have a lot of damage coming inside this window. This is where like blasters come into play. Of calling is you can get away with this kind of stuff, and this was on a blaster with no res shield. So like if you can imagine how much damage like this kills like a 1606 like 2 or 3 times over, versus a blaster who gets to like waddle away and do whatever he wants with his life. And then sometimes like you can be like Star like here where you're, spreading out the damage enough over this time. He takes a lot of damage, but he gets a max value heal right here, and then like he trickles greens out for the rest of the way. Like he gets good heals on this one. Like I mean, like I said, there's some later damage, but like you got you've got two people on target here for the first spike, and then you've got Wreck late. You've got Reported doing his follow up in a good timely manner, and then you have Arcade Cannon coming in almost 2 seconds late. So it's like that's like I said, not quite as relevant, and then Hacks is like really late, and then Wreck is Wreck's first attack was a bit late, but it was like it's not. No. So Wreck's first attack was really bad because it was a max range blaze that didn't hit until almost 4 seconds. So he was late and his positioning was off. But yeah, this is something like you can spend a lot of time looking. This is where like it's hard to say because like there's a lot going on at any given moment, but you can spend a lot of time looking in here to see this is where it'll show you what actually happened, specifically when people are firing, when their attacks hit, so like the cast and the hit time, and then the distance they fire from. This one is sometimes inconsistent, but it'll explain why sometimes the hit times are so late. It's like here's another one. Wreck fires at 1, 2, 3. His blaze doesn't hit until 3 seconds into a spike. So if Wreck's firing on time from a reasonable range, like Larry is, like I said, like 80 to about like 110 is a good range. You'll hit about 174. That's like literally the perfect time because what happens is Blazing Bolt cast afterwards doesn't care about range. Same way with Dominate, same with any hit scan attack. It only cares about animation. So Larry's two attacks hit within 0.2 of a second of each other, whereas Rex hit kind of close. Well, why the hell? I don't even. Okay, we're going to ignore Rex there because he threw Corrosive Enzymes as his second attack. But like I said, does he throw a third? Yes, he throws a Blazing Bolt in there. God only knows what he was doing. And Rocky Potato still died. But yeah, like what you want to look for is you want to fire your attacks from a range where they sync up like this. Water's a little different. Well, I won't get into that too much because there is a larger gap between them. But it's like I'm trying to see when you fire things right on top of people's heads. Like see this right here, 2.8 to 3.4. It varies from power, but like powers like Blaze, if you fire that right on top of their head, it hits very fast. And it almost hits too fast, but it still gives you 2 instances of damages before the 2-second mark. And this is your ideal right here. Like usually look to Larry what he's doing, and you'll be in a decent shape. But yeah, you can determine a lot of what's going on here from the spike log. Like if I'm curious as to like what happened with a match, like I'll spend 10-15 minutes here going through and looking at some of the spikes on different people, and you'll say, okay, what's going on here? Like these ones right here, it's like I know from my perspective, they get the first attack off, but because I was already high, they just didn't get much follow up off. Like there wasn't the thing on it. Now this is potentially deadly to a 1606, not so much a Fire Blaster. Not so much a blaster. Offense is a fun tab. The tuna cans, we call them up here. This is what I was talking about with when you look at like people like Larry and stuff like that. Like you want the really small tuna cans. This means that people are consistently firing their attacks on time. So if you have low OTP but you have a small tuna can, that means that every spike you are on, most spikes you are on, you are very impactful. If you have a very wide tuna can like this, it means that... So let me preface this by saying if you're a debuffer, the rules don't apply to you the same way because debuffs do act differently. But if you have these really wide ranges like this, it means your on target matters a lot less. Like you can have a high OTP, but your attacks are coming in so inconsistently that you're gonna be late from the people who are on time. So like in this match, it was like myself, Seagate, Reported was okay-ish, and Larry were like the like your backbone people. Like they're firing on target on time, and the on time thing is what matters a lot here. Whereas like Zeal, I know is a newer player. Like you can see like they're very spread out. Cubano was the same way. Haxer, who's another newer player, like I said, they're very spread out. And it's like I said, it is a learning process. I'm not trying to shame anybody here, but you want to try to get this tighter, where your first cast and your second follow up fall within that very narrow window. This just gives you some basic timing stuff, targeted, so many times. So like, if you're expected to be targeted a lot of times, you're going to have lower OTP. And the thing is sometimes this is how it works out, where it's like why OTP isn't indicative entirely is you can be targeted while a spike isn't happening and then get on that next target. Or you could be targeted as the countdown is happening and have to miss that spike. So someone who's targeted 14 times, and like I said, let's look at Cubano and I. Realistically, our OTPs could be the same here, but it's RNG whether or not I'm being targeted while a spike is counting down and I can still get on it, or while a spike is happening and I have to evade. So it's like I said, like OTP isn't this black and white thing. And like a person who's targeted 7 times can have a lower OTP than someone who's targeted 12 times if that person who was targeted 12 times never evades, or they don't react to the damage. They don't do anything with it or anything like that. It's like if the person is taking themselves off the target and breaking the damage, they're going to have a lower OTP. So that's why I said that's why I try to give like that decently wide berth to, like you could be targeted 6 or 7 times, and every time that you're targeted, you're missing a spike. Or you could be targeted 9 times and you only miss 2 spikes because of the way the timing syncs up. And that's why I said it's a very flexible kind of thing. Like, it's you don't want to look at it and just say, oh, like, low OTP, low OTP. It's like the reality is some people are getting targeted whenever the spike is going off and they've got to get out. Some people just aren't evading, so their OTPs are going to be higher, and that's bad. Some people are like throwing late attacks, and that OTP doesn't matter. So it's like it's a good first stat to kind of get yourself in the door, but you have to look at all these other things going on to kind of get an idea of what it is. So OTP, median timing, that's a good one to look at. Like you can see here, Larry, I think Mad Villain called, and I think I called. So like your callers are going to be usually a little more consistent, but like if you look at the median time in here, like this is kind of gross. Like I don't even know if like back in the old scrim days you had like timings this quite consistent. Where like your medium time is like very close to like the spike window like that. Like usually you see more in these ranges, and I'm going to be honest with you, 0.3 to 0.57 is not a bad medium timing. These are our 2 newer players, and like yes, they're a little late, but like as far as an overall match goes here, like everyone killed it in my opinion. Like Cubano being 51% of OTP but having 0.57 seconds timing, consistently getting almost 2 attacks off, and like all this stuff, like I wouldn't say Cubano did terrible. Now let's see here. Before I say that, how many times did he die? Cubano, 2 out of 14. Cubano did fantastic that match. As a 1606 nature affinity, I'll shoot some props out to you. Like yeah, there might be some of those where you were late. You were also the most pressured person in the match. You didn't give up a lot of kills, and you were still the spikes you were on. You were most of the time getting 2 attacks off. So attacks per spike is what this is. Sar killed it, getting it. Well, I don't want to say Sar killed it because let's see here. So yeah, and, he did pretty good. So he didn't have too many 3 attack spikes, but like having like the closer you can get to 2 attacks per spike, the better off you are. Like I said, the thing to keep in mind is you have to go back and look and see what people's timings are. Like I said, like we were kind of roasting Rec there for his late spikes and everything like that. And even then, like I said, it doesn't paint the whole picture. Like his median timing is usually pretty good, but like you got to go back and look and see like, oh, is there a lot of spikes up here in the tuna can where he's like outside the norm? But yeah, closer to 2 attacks, the better, because that means you're consistently getting off both attacks. Here's another thing with that stat, is if spikes are ultra clean, people die on the first attack. So like, let's say that you have 5 people firing at like the 0.17 second mark or something like that, or at or before that. And you're like the last one of those, your second attack might not go off. So it's like there's some spikes, and like I said, it's not like you need 2 attacks. Like don't think you need 2 attacks per spike, because some of this is going to have to come from firing 3 attacks on things. but like the closer you can get to 2, the better, especially if you're only firing 2 attacks. Number of attacks, this doesn't really matter. Um, it's just kind of a stat that Xhiggy tracks. Off target does matter to an extent. So it doesn't differentiate off target and then off target for various effects. So if you fire Ice Blast off target, if you fire Bitter Ice Blast dominate off target, that's bad. But if you have like I know in my Water Nature, I have Spirit Shark Jaws not slotted for damage, but I have the Entomb proc in it. So I have it used for set bonuses plus Entomb. I'll fire that off target between targets, or like, you know, if someone doesn't evade, I'll fire it as my 3rd attack. It's not actually for an attack, but it gets me a defensive bonus for doing it. So it's like, it doesn't necessarily mean Sar was roguing a lot. Like, you know, you do have things that you can do off target that are good. You know, like I said, if you have more time, like you can throw, you know, if you have time and like the calls are very slow and you have the extra attack, like you know, like how blasters have like 3-4 attacks that are good sometimes, and you know, if you're only needing Blaze Strangler, you can throw Blazing Bolt to keep your snipe buff up, and you can throw it on a good target. You know, if you put it on an Emp, it gives it a little pressure, but like don't think that like, oh yeah, like me roguing the Emp is going to be good. It's just more about it generates pressure, but it also allows you to keep your buff up while using your better attack, which is Blaze Strangler. So again, like all of these things I've mentioned before, like they're pretty subjective. Like it's not like you look at it and say, oh, good or bad. Like there are a lot of things that can be happening here. Now, like it's like if Sar is using Bitter Ice Blast off target a lot, that's bad because that's your best first attack that you have. I'm not saying he's doing that, but you know, it's like that's something to kind of keep in mind. And like I said, everyone's gonna have some off targets. Like one of the ways you can get off target is that like if the target dies as you're animating your second and it queues to the next target, that's an off target attack. Like I think you'll hear me sometimes call, "Oh, sorry, that was overflow," because like what happens is we'll be spiking a target and the game will, you know, I'll be hitting like Blaze, and then as I'm hitting Strangler or Blazing Bolt, the target is already dead, so I double tap a lot of times and it queues to the next target. And when the target caller calls that, like they're already calling the next target they see, which if I'm close with the target caller, is that next target. So it's like, oh, that's overflow damage. Like it's from the last spike where the person died before it can go off. So again, like I said, off target, not necessarily the worst thing, but you don't want to go crazy on it. Like here, everyone had a decent amount. I still say, I know a lot of people say like, well, I was off target that one, so I went and just like rogued an Emp. Don't do that. Use that time to be a better defensive player. Use that time to be on the next target. Like pull yourself out. Make sure you can get a good lock, because if you're off target scrambling, like let's say that person wasn't in the best position and you're late to the next spike, you just doubly screwed yourself. Like you basically made your team lose offensive pressure overall for the sake of throwing some rogue damage that most likely isn't going to matter. Because most people, like I said, the good players aren't going to live and die by heal most of the time. They're going to live and die by, like I said, if you look how Malix lives and dies, it's by his reaction speed to the damage coming in, like early hives, early jaunts, stuff like that. And then the heal is there more for a top off. So like you roguing that Emp doesn't do what you think it's going to do. Like yeah, if you're spiking a person who doesn't evade, who needs that heal, then sure, it's going to have an impact. But you don't know that, and it also has more downsides that come along with it. First, the only thing that really matters with first is if you're a target caller, which at this point is, I'm pretty sure it was Arcade Cannon and myself. You're going to tend to be more first on target, but you have to remember that there is a little, you don't want to be too much. Like this is a good distribution here. Like you have especially for red team, we have 15, 12, 12. 4, 3. So you can see like our late players here, like they're tend to be not first. So and like this is why I think Dutch was mentioning about like, oh, getting 9 kills. These players right here, these are the players who are going to get your high kills. These players right here, they're not going to get kills most often. You get kills by being late to the target, by being the last one there. So you don't want to have, if you have high kills in a match, you can basically go to the stats and say, oh, I wasn't first that much. I was late to target, so I'm the cleanup. The cleanup isn't good, because what you want is you want everyone to kind of have equal things, and then you have more kills just because your spikes are cleaner. But yeah, so first is like, it's a little thing to look at. You want to make sure as a target caller you're not like massively outpacing the rest of your team. Like here, like Mad Villain's 18, Larry's 19. So that means like they're both firing. Like, you know, any kind of delay that you might need for your connection, like for Discord, for the game server, anything like that. Like this is a good place to make sure you're in an okay spot. So that covers that tab. The one little thing here is if you click on a player, it'll show you their attack chains. This is generally what you want. You don't, you want a lot of 2 attack chains. The 1 attack chains, they're going to happen sometimes. Like someone gets off an early hive, an early jaunt, like your positioning isn't great. It's going to happen. This is an interesting one too, is where if you're late to target, like let's say I'm firing my first attack at like 1.17 seconds. I don't want that first attack to be a blaze. I want it to be a blazing bolt. So only firing a blazing bolt it's a pseudo mistake, but it's also a better mistake than firing blazing bolt a second late. So just firing blazing bolt, if you're a little, that's like just firing your hit scan attack, which would be like your dominates, your dehydrates. I think all earth powers are like that. Like if you're late to the spike or you're too far away, it can be better to just fire the 1 attack late because it'll hit with everybody else, and you just hope that not as many people are making that mistake. But you will make those mistakes. It's like I said, there's the 3D movement and everything like that. It's going to happen. But this is what you want more often than not. You want most of your things to be 2 attacks. Sometimes you're going to get some 1 attacks, and then your solo attacks like this being hit scan. It's not the worst thing, but it's not ideal either. But that kind of covers that page. Defense. This is a fun one to look at. It's more cumulative of everything that's going on. It tells you your defensive stats, how much damage you took, how much non-spikes, so like how much you were getting rogued. Let's see here. Lovedock was getting rogued. Urktus is being rogued. So here's the thing, and this annoys me as an Emp player, is like people just roguing the Emps. It's like it doesn't do what you think it does. It only works at like the lowest level where you're dealing with people who refuse to evade damage. Like, Emps have the most reliable access to heals. They're not getting spiked as much. Like if you look in this match, there was not that many spikes across the Emps. Where's Wapper? Yeah, so literally in this match, Lunakin was spiked 4 times, Urktus 2, and the other 2 Emps 0. So like they're not getting that many targets. So like, and they're also never like hard animating like that. So you can have more access to burning greens. So that's why I said like roguing the Emps is I still think is like one of the worst things you can do. It works whenever, like I said, you don't have people evading and stuff like that. But it's like when you don't have people evading, the people who aren't evading are the people who are roguing Emps. Like they're the people who are animating these attacks on the Emps off target as opposed to getting better positioning. That's just my rant on the thing. Damage taken. This is a cumulative stat. What you want to look at here is like how many targets they had on them versus how much damage they were taking. Damage per survived this is whatever you're not. What is this? Yeah, so this is whatever you are spiked and you don't die. How much damage did you take? And you want your number to be down here. Now, like I said, 400 Degrees didn't do especially well here because he died 4 of 6. So, like, you want to compare this number with how many times you died. So, if you look at these, most of the time people are taking their entire hit point. Or, I'm sorry, right here. You want to look for people who are consistently under their hit point cap. So, like, I was targeted 14 times, and whatever I survived, I consistently wasn't getting, like I said, it wasn't because I was getting heals. It was because I didn't take enough damage for them to kill me, which means I was either probably breaking it up or I was positioning in a certain way or something like that. But if you get over your hit point cap, it means that you're consistently needing heals or you're consistently taking more damage than you need to. Like I said, ideally this number is going to be as low as possible while also dying as few times as possible. Like Cubano here being like, an average of 1500 isn't bad, especially across 14 targets. Damage per death. This is something where you can look at is, are you getting heals? So reported took 1847, which is the blaster hit point cap. So the 2 times he died, there's a really good chance that he didn't get any relevant healing on him. But, like I said, only dying 2 of 13 times isn't too bad. So it means like the other times he had relevant healing, and then like either he just he messed up, he made a mistake, got caught animating. A lot of things are going on with the healers, so like they missed the spikes. Um, but like I said, yeah, like the thing you want to avoid is damage on deaths where you're if you're dying and you're consistently taking more damage than your hit point pool. It means that you're getting heals and you're still not evading and you're still not breaking up the damage. Um, so again, lower is better here. Lunaken here, him being under 1606 means that he's basically getting rogued first and then damaged. You can tell like Reckon Seagate got caught clean. Cubano, he had a heal, but like I said, again, for being pressured that much, we're not going to say anything bad about it. Heals taken, this can show you who's taking your heals and stuff like that. So like Cubano taking 42 on 14 targets. It's like the more you're going to take, the more damage you're going to take. The more you're going to need heals, and like that's cumulative heals. That's top offs, heals on spikes, everything like that. Less is better. I think there's a couple games I was proud of where it's like going 0 deaths on 11 targets and taking less heals than most people. It's like those are the games where you're really on point, where you're playing really good defensively. You're jaunting very fast. You don't need a lot of top offs. Like it's definitely more of a nature thing because you can top yourself off with your own heals. But yeah, less is better. But at the same time, EMPs are going to chase you down and heal you. So it's like, don't sweat over this stat. Like it's just like it's a small piece of like the larger picture. Average phase. This is always a good one to look at. Is how quick are people phasing and how many times are they phasing. So anything under 1.7 seconds average is good because usually, as we saw, it's like 1.7 to about 1.9 is when both attacks hit. But like I said, it is, there is a lot going on. So like people tend to be a little slower with it. Average jaunt's the same way, faster is better. Like Luna is pre-jaunting, there. Xeracles has the fastest. I'm next. And then, all natural. So it's like from there, it just gets a little slower. And then like some people just don't even have jaunts on records or anything like that. I think that's because some of them might use teleport. I don't even know if Condra just didn't use jaunt. I know Hell's didn't get targeted, but like some people have like teleport or Mystic TP, which doesn't show up here; it only shows jaunts. But yeah, average phase, average jaunt, you want them to be as low as possible. The thing could be here is like I said, it's not black and white. It's not like every jaunt I did was at 1.59 seconds. Like I could have like pre-jaunted one spike and it doesn't show up as a target. I could have basically been in animation, animated a 2-second attack, and then jaunted after that. It's just like an average. It just gives you an idea. It's not like, oh, this person, like, it's not like that Rec did worse than me or that All Natural did better than me, like by a significant margin. Like it just kind of gives you an idea. Like you have to go back and look at that spike log to see what happened. It's like, oh, I can look and see that. Apocalypticism was animating Strangler while he was being spiked, and then and then jaunted immediately afterwards. That's still that's still a very fast reaction. You were just caught in animation, but you could also, not do anything. You could not be animating anything, not jaunt for 3 seconds, and then that's really bad. It's like it's not cut and dry. It's like I said, you have to kind of go back and look at the spike log if you want to compare it on a deeper level. But this just gives you a decent idea. Like we know that Zeal can jaunt a little faster. With Xeracles here, I don't know why it's only saying 1, because usually SAR's jaunt speed is much faster. No, his jaunt speed is very fast. His phase speed is slow. So yeah, SAR's is very fast. So like SAR is out of there in a very timely manner. But yeah, that's kind of this page. It's a good little cumulative thing. Supports. I should make a second video for this, but we'll just stick it out here since we're already running long. First heal cast. This doesn't mean the most because of the way damage hits. Like Whapper's medium time. Like you can tell he is the fastest up here. And, I mean, him and Lovedock are pretty much similar. Lovedocks are a little more consistent. Whappers are a little further out. But with Ebs, like, consistency doesn't matter like that because you're not always firing 1-2. As an elect, you can fire 1-2 faster just because you do half the less than half. It's like 38 to 40% of the animation time is the 2 heals. But you'd also don't want to always fire your next heal immediately. If the damage is slowed off, you want to top them off and get the most value out of here, especially since like if you're leading with heal other, you want your AP to get them back to full so you don't have to heal them anymore. If you're APing them as they're still taking damage even though they've already got a heal other, then like you're probably have to top them off for a third heal, which is, making you late for the next target. So this just gives you an idea of what people's heal times are and everything like that. You can see Urtus is a little slower, Hot's a little faster, Luna, and like I said, this one is, everyone's pretty consistent. Like I said, Urtus being like this isn't necessarily the worst thing. Like if he would just play like this, like as a top off imp, he, the thing would work fine. Like if he prioritized clear minds over that, which if you could look down here, he did. I would say he played this really well. So as an elect, you don't have clear mind. And you put all the clear minds on your other imp, so your other imp is more of a top-off imp and a clear mind bot, making sure everyone has clear mind. And guess what? Urtus did exactly that. Well done, Hinton. And even then, like I said, he's still getting some alphas on some heals. The late heals to me don't matter. Like because if someone jaunts well, it's gonna be a late heal, that kind of thing. And like I said, you can see right here is like he's basically a top-off bot. He's like hitting a lot of heal others. He's on AP bombing. Whereas like Hells and Ken are having to AP bomb because of Hot here on the elect. He gets a little bit more of a relaxed setting. On heal, like I said, if you're in the 40 to 60% range, thumbs up. There's gonna be a lot of factors, like I said, like that are some heals aren't gonna matter. Some heals are gonna be top off and they're too late to register. Times healing on target, like I said, it's just kind of a nice little thing to look at. Average speed, again, like I said, if people are jaunting very fast, like this average speed is honestly slow for these M's. Their median speed is a little bit faster, like I said, like the 197,220, but these average speeds are a little slow, which tells me, based on if you look at the spikes and everything like that, people were probably reacting to damage pretty well. So like these are more consistently top off heals rather than heals on spike. Now their median heals, like the most of the heals they do, they are getting like very timely on spike. Alpha heals, this is just something to look at and see who's the alpha imp, and like don't think it is like a chest speeding thing. It's like whoever's faster takes more of the spike heals. Like now as a backup imp, you're not looking to completely negate that because there are times where your alpha imp's going to be off. But like you're trying to take up more of the slack that the alpha imp creates. So like you're trying to keep more clear minds up. You're better with your buffs. You're better with your spirit ward. You're topping more people off. Like you're going to try to throw more heals and everything like that. Now you're not going to throw more heals than elect. Like that's just the way it works. Heals into phase targets. This is something you want to try to avoid because you're just burning a heal. But it's like the reality is if you're hitting it at the same time, you're going to throw a heal into a phase. Late heals again. It's very subjective because you getting a late heal on a spike could be someone jaunted early, or it could be you were just a little out of position or anything like that. But getting a heal there is still a top up, especially if the person didn't die. Like if they took the action to get out and like you're hitting at the top of their jaunt versus like during the peak of the spike window, like it could still be a decent heal. Clear mind numbers, more is better, but also it doesn't. There can be such a thing as too many. You don't need to stack it up or anything like that because they don't stack as far as protection value. They only stack as resistance value. So as long as everyone has one, you're good. I think this is actually a pretty reasonable number here between the two imps. And like I said, Lunacan tends to be like the more alpha bomb imp. You can see he's just slightly faster than Hells, but like I said, they split the alpha, but Hell's got a couple more clear ones off. But the thing is like if Hells has a little bit more free time, then Hells can get more. Like I said, this isn't one better than the other. Like these are two almost like identical imp players when you look at it. Like their timing, their average, the number of alphas. Like it's a decent imp duo for sure. Not a decent. It's a fantastic imp duo. Good job, guys. This is an interesting thing to look at. These are the extras. The one I always look for are spirit wards. That is I think one of the most impactful things an Emp can do beyond healing is Spirit Wards on good targets. I don't think. Well, no, Hells has it. And the thing is, I'll tell you right now, it's not going to record all of your Spirit Wards because I've thrown like 15 on Dex in a match before, and it showed up as 3. So I don't know what the hell is going on with that. But if you see Spirit Ward being thrown, just know that you get a thumbs up from me. But don't expect the value to be accurate. I don't know why it never shows up the right amount, but it just doesn't. But that's pretty much all there is to reading the Ebb stats. Like I said, it's like, you can see if someone's being consistently slower, but like I'm not even mad at like Hinden's slower speed here because he kept the clear minds up for his team as a solo Emp, and he threw 50 heals as an Emp as the top off Emp to an Elec on a very tight team. So you know what? Gold star for everybody in that match. That was a really good one. And like I said, everyone's values are where they were, and that's pretty much it. This will give you the series, like the whole breakdown of stuff. Some people have things. If you're playing like familiar characters, it'll pick up like the player rather than the individual character. Like, see, there's Gucci Waterballoon. That's a new character. It's not picked up. But like SAR, Seductive, those characters are registered. Because Xhiggy doesn't keep up with us anymore, the stats aren't going to be as cumulative as they used to be. But, it's like still something you can look at the series and see how people did overall. Like, this is like all the matches combined together. You can see how many targets people had on them. Like, Pwned had an average of 15 targets per match, I think. And then an average of... where was she? I don't know, we lost her. Maybe she put up 0 deaths. Who knows? But you could just kind of look at the cumulative, like average per match, average OTP, that kind of stuff. See where people are. Like you got Sar and Larry at the top, no surprise. Madge and Rek, they're always very high. Rek, we got to roast a little bit because we see he's doing some nonsense. I'm still up there, even though we're old men at some point. Half of us here are old men. And then, like I said, it goes from there. But like I said, OTP overall, like we talked about, it's not night or it's not black and white. Like there's a lot of factors. So when you're reading the stats, if you want to do the surface stuff, do the surface stuff. But if you want to actually like, I don't want to say stat shame someone, but if you actually want to look at what's going on, you got to go to the spike logs. You got to look at like individual things and see what actions are looking like. And hopefully that helps people read them. I know this is long. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you guys later.